You know, the global push to hit net zero by 2050 is putting a ton of pressure on every industry, especially construction. But what if the key to building a sustainable future isn't some brand new, complex technology, but one of our oldest and most reliable materials? Today, we're going to break down how timber is completely changing the game for construction and why Vietnam is right at the heart of this green revolution.
So here's our roadmap. First, we'll tackle the big carbon challenge the building sector is facing. Then we'll dive into why timber is such a smart solution. After that, we're going to zoom in on Vietnam, a real powerhouse in the wood industry. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the innovations that are literally building a greener future. Ready? Let's get into it.
All right, let's start with the big problem we're all trying to solve. This global push for net zero, it's not just some nice-to-have environmental goal anymore. It's a market reality. And for the construction industry, this means the old ways of doing things are under a serious microscope.
I mean, think about it. For decades, concrete and steel have been the go-to materials for our cities, and they're strong, no doubt. But making them creates a huge carbon footprint. If the industry wants to hit those climate targets and, frankly, stay competitive, it can't just tweak things. It needs a fundamental shift in the materials it uses.
So that brings us to the billion-dollar question for every single developer, architect, and policymaker out there. How do we build the world of tomorrow without wrecking it in the process? Well, the answer might be a lot more natural than you'd expect. And that, of course, brings us to timber. But let's be clear, this isn't just about finding a sustainable alternative. For a lot of modern building challenges, wood is actually the better solution, period. Let's break down why.
This is the really cool part. Timber gives us what I like to call a 1-2 climate punch. First, the wood itself acts as a carbon sink. It literally stores carbon, locking it away for the entire life of the building. And second, by choosing timber, you are actively not choosing high-emission materials like steel and concrete. It's a win-win. And we're not just talking about environmental brownie points here. These benefits translate into serious, real-world performance advantages. We're talking about modern engineered timber, stuff like cross-laminated timber. It's incredibly strong but also lightweight, which makes transport and construction faster and cheaper. Plus, it performs better in earthquakes and keeps buildings better insulated. It's a clear win for performance and the planet.
So how does this whole carbon storage thing actually work? Well, it's pretty simple, really. It all starts in sustainably managed forests, where young, growing trees are just sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere. When a tree is harvested, all that carbon, which is about half its dry weight, gets locked right into the wood product. It just stays there for decades, even centuries. It's nature's own carbon capture technology, and it's brilliant.
Okay, so we've seen just how much potential timber has. Now, let's talk about a country that's taking that potential and running with it. Because Vietnam isn't just another player in the timber industry. It's a global powerhouse that's really shaping its future.
Let's just start with this number, because it's a big one. $6 billion. And get this, that's not an export goal. That's the government's target for its domestic timber market by 2030. That tells you everything you need to know about their national strategy. They plan to build their own future with wood.
And this focus on the domestic market, it's built on a rock-solid foundation of global success. Vietnam is the 5th largest timber exporter in the world. That doesn't happen by accident. That's the result of decades of investment in skills, scale, and supply chain infrastructure.
And beyond the big money and global rankings, the impact on the ground is just massive. We're talking about an industry that supports 500,000 jobs. That's 500,000 livelihoods, from forest management all the way to high-tech manufacturing. This is what sustainable development that builds communities actually looks like. So who's buying all this timber? Pretty much the world's biggest markets. The US, Japan, China, South Korea, the EU. A whopping 90% of exports go to these key players. It's crystal clear that Vietnam is a trusted, major supplier in the global game. But here's the real secret to their success. It's all about adding value. A massive 81% of their industry is focused on processing, especially furniture. This shows Vietnam isn't just selling logs, it's a sophisticated manufacturing hub. And that kind of expertise is exactly what you need to scale up engineered timber for the construction industry. So let's bring this back to real-world impact. Imagine a small project, say building 23 apartments. By choosing pine frames instead of steel, you save 547 tons of CO2 emissions. Just gone. Now imagine scaling that across an entire city's development pipeline. The numbers get absolutely transformative. Okay, this brings us to the final and maybe most exciting part. What comes next?
Because the story of timber isn't just about what it is today. It's about the incredible innovations that are shaping the future of how we build, right now. The future of timber is really taking off. For one, the market is catching on. Architects and developers are choosing wood because it just works better, not only because it's green. At the same time, we're seeing amazing innovation in materials, unlocking the potential of things like rubber wood and bamboo. And finally, there's transparency. Tools like environmental product declarations are giving builders the hard data they need to prove they're making sustainable choices.
And all this incredible innovation, it's all pointing in one direction: a true circular economy for construction. We're talking about a system where everything, from a skyscraper's frame to the finish on a countertop, is designed from day one to be reused or recycled. A system that basically designs waste right out of the equation to achieve total carbon neutrality.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a really simple but powerful question to ask on your next project. When you're looking at those blueprints, just ask yourself, is this building going to be a carbon source or a carbon sink? The choice and the opportunity is becoming clearer every single day. Thanks for joining us.